It literally snowed last night, but the sun is just beating on me so perfectly. I feel like I might take my sweater off because the sun has not kissed my skin in weeks. It's not like hot right now by any means, and it's crazy to think that I am out here dressed like this because I was born and raised in South Florida. Anything below 70 degrees naturally is freezing for me, but I guess I'm adjusting. This video is going to be different than any video I've ever filmed. I'm gonna be talking you through my personal experience with health, fitness, and my relationship with food. That's it. Let's just get right into it. Trigger warning right off the bat. I have not openly talked about this much on social media, which is a surprise because I talk about everything when it comes to mental health, sobriety, depression, but one thing that I never really opened up or elaborated on with you guys has been my relationship with food. And I think that's because that was something that was so inconsistent and so irregular throughout majority of my life, and I had a lot of shame associated with my relationship with food, my relationship with fitness, and my relationship with my body. So I kind of just kept that part of my life to myself. Editing Lizzie here. I forgot to mention that in no way, shape, or form am I a professional on any of these topics. This is my personal experience, and I'm not here to give you advice. I'm just here to tell you what happened to me when I did certain things. The last 6 years or so, I have been the most consistent and most motivated I have ever been in my life to continue to try to find ways to improve physically and to continue getting stronger and healthier, and that's what this video is going to be. So let's start from the very beginning. When I was a child, I don't recall having an unhealthy relationship with food until I was probably middle school, transitioning into high school. Let me give you a little backstory. I began competitive cheerleading when I was 7 years old, did that till I was 17. So for those 10 years, that was my most consistent form of exercise. Both of my parents were heavily into fitness and into the gym throughout my entire life, and I kind of feel like because both of them were gym rats, truly, it kind of totally turned me off to the gym when I was younger. So my main form of fitness, like I said, was cheerleading, but I grew to really resent that sport because I was just dealing with so many injuries, and also at the time I was a lot younger, not as educated on my body, my health, my personal needs, you know? So I stopped cheerleading when I was 17, and I kind of went an entire year without consistent fitness, and during that year, that's when I really put on a lot of weight. And I think that was for two reasons. I think it was due to the fact that I wasn't moving consistently, but also my eating habits changed significantly. I mentioned earlier, I started developing an unhealthy relationship with food when I was maybe 13 or 14. That was when I started restricting myself from food. I kept a journal logging everything that I ate and made it very clear what foods I was not allowed to eat. That didn't last very long, I think maybe a year or two. After that obsession kind of started to fade away, I kind of just started eating normal again, I think, from what I can remember. Fast forward to that year of turning 17, taking that break from fitness, I started smoking pot regularly. I don't smoke pot anymore. I'm gonna make a whole video on this potentially, but I'm not gonna go too in depth on it in this video. But if you have ever smoked some Mary Jane, you know munchies are real. You can't not eat if you're high. So it kind of was good because, like I said, there was that short period of time that I was restricting myself. So I feel like, or at least at the time, I felt like, you know what, this is good, I'm eating. But now that I am out of that chapter of life and I'm able to look at it from a different perspective, I realized I was overeating and I was eating extremely unhealthy. So I put on some weight very quickly. I think at my heaviest I was probably about 140, but that was not muscle mass, that was fat. I can't find all of my photos from this time of my life, but here's a couple where you can just see I carried fat much differently throughout my body and my boobs and my face. Even though I wasn't overweight, I definitely, like I said, was just carrying much more fat. I was not fit. After that year of kind of binge eating and not really eating the cleanest, when I was about 18, that's when I had my first serious relationship, and this partner at the time really inspired me to get back into fitness, and also inspired different diet changes. This person was an athlete, so I just gravitated towards getting back into the gym, except I didn't really feel like I was choosing to go to the gym because I wanted to. I felt like I was making that decision because I wanted this partner to be attracted to me. I knew that they were an athlete and I assumed they would find this attractive. That was not a choice I was making for myself. Probably from when I was 18 to 20 years old, I was working out a handful of times a week, but I was not giving it my all. I was kind of just going there to say I went, and the exercises I was doing were not consistent. There was no structure or logic behind my workouts. But this partner, like I mentioned, also influenced a diet change. They are who inspired me to become vegan, and at the time that was a great thing for me because it was something new. I've always been open to trying new things if they weren't going to hurt me, somebody else, or the planet, and that's why I attempted to become vegan in the first place. But being vegan doesn't guarantee health. You can be an unhealthy vegan. I would say this was back in like 2016 that I became vegan. There were not as many options. There weren't that many like people creating content revolving around vegan meals. So yeah, I was not eating the healthiest, but I didn't have those binge eating tendencies like I did the year prior or 2 years prior. So just kind of like seeing the evolution of my diet, still not eating the cleanest, but trying to like manage my emotional eating, if that makes sense. Then when I turned 20, I moved out to San Diego, and that was the first time that I was introduced to like a yoga class that was a mindful practice. Because back when I was growing up in Florida, going to the gym with my parents when I was younger, there would be yoga classes in the gym, but they didn't revolve around mindfulness and that mind-body connection. So out in San Diego, it was the first time I had that experience of combining both. Oh, and also right now I'm in North Carolina. I had been visiting North Carolina since I was 8 or 9, and transitioning into my late teenage years, into my early 20s, I really picked up hiking whenever I would come out here to travel. And when I moved out to San Diego, there's mountains out there. So this was the first time in my life, like I said, I was 20, that fitness became a choice for me. It was the first time in my life that I wanted fitness. The combination of yoga and hiking, that was my thing. Actually, when I first got out to San Diego, for the first like 6 months or so, I was still keeping up with my gym habit. So after those first 6 months of living there, that's when I discovered the yoga, the hiking, got hooked on that. And that was really my only form of fitness from the time I was probably 20 to 23. So for 3 years, I really did not do much weight training, and I started to develop this like very negative association with weight training, because I would think back on the past and think, I never did that because I wanted to. I only wanted to impress this partner. I only went because my parents made me go. I only trained that way because I needed to be strong for cheerleading. I hate this, I don't even like this, I'm never weight training. What? Weight training is essential, but so is mobility, so is static and dynamic stretching. So what I've learned from the time I was 23 till now is to not just limit myself to 1 or 2 forms of movement, and to try new things, and to be open to the fun that movement can offer. So when I was 23, 24, I didn't have the confidence yet to get in the gym, so I started hiking with weights, with ankle weights, with a weighted vest. Did that. I started putting on a little bit of muscle. Soon I'm going to tell you about like my weight loss, weight gain throughout this, okay, in a minute. So I started putting on a little bit of muscle, and I think it was just a total lack of confidence that made me feel so turned off to the gym, because as soon as I started putting the muscle on, the idea of going to the gym did not make me want to totally die. Like, I actually felt like, you know what, maybe I can go in there, lift a couple weights, and not make a total fool of myself. If you're struggling with something similar, finding that motivation to get into a more social environment, maybe try a practice that's more private to build your confidence. Now, let me update you on my relationship with food during all of this, because like I said, 18, I became vegan. I was vegan for 8 years. The first 2 years, probably not the healthiest diet choices, but once I moved out to San Diego, Actually, that's not even true, because when I moved out to San Diego, that's when I really started focusing on running my art business full time. And I would make these excuses like, I don't have time to cook. It'll cost me more money to cook because that's less time that I can spend working. So I was eating out for majority of my meals, which was very expensive and honestly very unhealthy, depending on where you eat. I was 20 years old, 21, 22, 23. I was not eating like at these fancy, expensive restaurants. I was getting like cheap vegan fast food, you know?
Editing Lizzie here. I forgot to tell you, during the first 6 months of living in San Diego, I picked up pot smoking. And for the first time in my life, this became an everyday habit, and I started binge eating again. I noticed this pattern throughout my life. Whenever I was smoking pot, I was abusing it. Because I was doing it so frequently, I was binge eating frequently. And during the first 6 months of living out there, weight started coming back on. Okay, just forgot to tell you.
But what switched? Like, what clicked inside my head that made me realize I need to make a change? It wasn't so much of a physical change or a physical burst of motivation. It was more emotional, honestly. I just got to a really low point. I felt extremely unhealthy. I wasn't fueling it properly with nutritious whole foods. I wasn't that strong. I was also drinking heavily at this time. Emotionally, I think I was just fed up, and that's when I started to make physical changes, incorporating the weights in my workouts. But also when it came to my diet, around this time when I was 23, I just had to make the choice. I had to choose to start cooking at home and to start paying attention to added sugar. That's kind of where my evolution of healthy eating started. I literally just started paying attention to sugar. That was it. That was the very first thing for me. I cut out as much of processed sugar as I could, and when I started doing that, naturally other little healthy food options started to appeal to me. So I started eating more whole foods, whole veggies and fruits, rather than the fast food shit, you know? When this happened, I was not intentionally trying to lose weight. Backtrack to when I was in high school and not eating. I wanted to lose weight then. I wasn't very thin at the time that I was restricting myself from eating. You probably couldn't even tell that I was restricting myself, because it wasn't like I was starving myself throughout the entire day. There were moments that I would snack, but it wasn't a full meal. And when I would snack, it was just that fast sugar shit, you know? So even though I was restricting my food at that time, I actually was not very thin. So fast forward, I'm not restricting my food. I'm just eating healthy, and I'm being more mindful about the processed sugar, and I lost a lot of weight really quickly.
I'm gonna share more photos in a minute, but just take note of how thin my thighs got, my stomach, my face.
And in the beginning, I felt really good about myself because I felt like I was making positive lifestyle changes by incorporating weight training, by cleaning up my diet. So I feel like that was the beginning of this positive momentum for me. But that started to get a little out of hand as well. I started to hyperfixate on processed sugars and just processed food in general. I was literally only eating fruits and vegetables. I was still vegan at this time. I was not getting enough protein. I know that for sure. I was definitely not getting enough carbs. I was not getting enough of anything. So I just was losing weight. I could not keep weight on. And it actually got to the point where I became extremely insecure by how thin I was. Like I said, at my heaviest, I was probably 140, lots of fat, not a lot of muscle. At my lowest, I was 110, 111. I'm 5'6". I had barely any body fat. You want to eat healthy, but the way I was going about this, it was just too much. That was never my intention. That was not an intended eating disorder. I don't consider this an eating disorder. I consider this just lack of knowledge, lack of nutritional knowledge. When I was about 24, this started to consume me, my weight loss. Honestly, I just got to this point of being fed up about complaining and being insecure and crying about my body. I was like, bro, look at how much energy you're investing into dwelling about this instead of investing that energy into like potentially changing it. So about 24-ish, that's when I started tracking my calories. I know that sounds kind of weird to say out loud, because the last time I tracked my calories was when I was a child and restricting myself from food. So it was an interesting situation to then be tracking my calories because I wanted to gain weight. Hang on, the wind is starting to pick up and I'm getting a little chilly. I found an app, I've talked about it before in some of my videos. It's called LifeSum. This is not sponsored. I actually reached out to them to try to get a sponsorship with them, but they rejected me. I just genuinely love this app. When you sign up, you type in your current physical state, then you type in your end goal, and then it helps you get to that end goal. That was probably the most significant thing that I chose to do to take action in putting on healthy weight, because I didn't want to eat unhealthy to put on the weight, you know? I just gotta say, I gotta talk about this. Weight gain is actually a lot harder than you would imagine when you're trying to ensure that it's healthy. I have talked about this a handful of times on YouTube, on Instagram, and a few of you have reached out saying that you actually are in a similar position. And I feel like this should be talked about more, because so many times everybody talks about weight loss, encouraging like specific diets or techniques or workouts or meal plans or whatever it may be to support those that are trying to, you know, take on their weight loss journey. But I personally just don't really see that many people talking about the struggle of putting on weight. It is very hard. I think it can be just as hard as losing weight. And what also makes it very difficult is, I guess, in society, a smaller frame, skinny is pretty, you know? So when I talk about, or when I have talked about this insecurity, I was almost invalidated because skinny is pretty. I just wanted to say that because if you're in a similar situation, you're not invalid. Anyways, let's fast forward a little bit. So 24, 25, 26, my diet totally changed. So not only am I starting to trying to put on healthy weight, but I stopped being vegan. Right when I hit my 8-year mark of being vegan, this was about 2 years ago, I started eating eggs. I just truly started to believe, and everybody's different, do your research and fuel your body the way that you think you need to fuel your body. But I started to believe that a vegan diet was not the healthiest option for me, and I just was curious if animal protein and fat would help me put on healthy weight, help me feel stronger, gain that muscle. So I started eating eggs. And then maybe 3 months after I started eating eggs, started eating fish. And I'm sure somebody might wonder, did I feel any different after being vegan for so long and then starting to consume animal products again? I don't remember a significant difference, if I'm being honest, but I am confident and I am almost 100% sure that my energy levels have raised. I do feel like my body is healthier, even though I don't really think I have much proof to show myself. It's kind of like an intuitive internal feeling. I just feel like it makes sense that I'm eating fat, like pure natural fat and protein from an animal versus trying to get it in a supplement, because I wasn't getting that from plants.
Hi again. So as I'm editing, this thought came to me. I think I'm not able to fully identify if my diet change played a significant role in any physical or emotional energy levels. I think I'm not able to tell because so many areas of my life changed as well. Stopped smoking pot, stopped drinking alcohol. So it's hard for me to gauge which of these things, if not all of these things, contributed to a healthier being, which I know for sure that all of these things have contributed to a healthier life. So yeah, that's why I'm saying I can't 100% say being vegan versus not being vegan, I see the difference, I feel the difference, because I think it's just everything that I've changed.
My intention when I became vegan, like I said, was just to try something new. It was never to stay the same forever. I never want to stay the same forever. Now I'm 27. I've been on this weight gain journey for 3 years or so, and this is the strongest and healthiest I've ever felt in my life. It is also the most consistent I've ever been with fitness. Like I said in the beginning, my goal is not to master one form of fitness, it's to enjoy multiple forms of fitness so I don't get bored, so that way I feel enthusiastic to move my body every day. Current update, this is kind of like a little diary entry for me, so that way I can keep track of my progress. But I'm currently between like 120 and 125. maybe 122 and 126. That's like what I fluctuate. And it's weird because when I was younger, I was at a consistent weight basically for like a very long time until a significant lifestyle change happened, and then my weight might have changed. But now that I'm in my late 20s, my weight changes every month, and I don't notice myself doing really anything different month to month. But my weight drops and increases by a couple of pounds pretty regularly. So if you also notice that within your body, like, is that normal in your late 20s? I have seen other women my age, my friends, talk about that, so I don't think it's totally abnormal.
Okay, let's take a moment to appreciate the gains. Look at how little my booty was. I was so skinny. My thighs did not touch in the middle. And now wait for it. Boom. Look at those quads. Look at that juicy booty. My thighs are touching in the middle again, and I feel my most confident.
Throughout the last 6 years of what I've practiced, tested out, the things that I've gained and that I am applying to my diet today from that bit of time are the least amount of processed sugars, the better, but I'm not totally crazy about it. Like, for example, I got a sweet little treat that has processed sugar and it's okay. So I'm not like totally like anal about that. Whole foods, like I said, when I initially started to lose weight pretty quickly, that's all I was eating. I'm still keeping that in my diet along with healthy carbs, and a lot of healthy fats. And also, I still use this app, not every single day like I was the first year or two of my weight gain journey, but I still use this app randomly if I start to notice maybe I'm not eating as much as I should, or I just want to be sure that I'm being consistent. Honestly, I do have this fear of going back to being 110 pounds. It's an actual fear, so I think that's why I still check in with the app every once in a while. Back when I first started the weight gain journey, I was weighing myself almost every day, and I don't suggest that because you're not going to see results for weight gain or weight loss between a day. Instead, now, just to make sure that I'm staying consistent, like I said, this is fear-based. I don't want to weigh myself every month to make sure that I am not losing weight, but it's just coming from a place of fear. I don't want to go back to where I was. So maybe once a month, once every other month, I do weigh myself to check in, which probably isn't the worst thing, but I just don't want to constantly be thinking about it. I'm always thinking about, see, this is like unhealthy, but I'm always thinking about like not being an unhealthy skinny, not being strong. You know, I want to continue this momentum with my health and fitness journey. But like I just admitted, that obsessive thinking is unhealthy, and I'm trying to loosen the reins on that just so it's less of a controlling thought. God, now I'm heating up again. What does my fitness routine look like today, in case you're wondering, because I'm kind of trying to update you, giving you a timeline. Today, I actually have a schedule for my weighted, like weightlifting workouts to hold myself accountable and to make sure that I am staying committed to my goals. I like to do weight training 4 days a week. I'll do 3 days of lower body, 1 day of upper body. Every single day nearly, I'll offer myself some sort of mobility, stretching, or yoga. And then, depending on where it is that I am, because the beginning of this year I was in Florida majority of January, but if I'm in the mountains, then I will do hikes, weighted hikes or non-weighted hikes. Those are the consistent aspects of my fitness journey today. And then just some like other little odd, fun, random fitness things that I like to do that you guys might want to try. Mountain biking, street biking, neighborhood runs, just walking the dogs, paddleboarding, surfing, roller skating, rollerblading. There's so many fun options. Fitness doesn't have to feel like a chore. It doesn't have to feel like a punishment. It can be fun, it can be liberating, and it is empowering when you show up for yourself over and over and you start to build that trust. You trust that you're going to do this for yourself. You trust that you're going to stay consistent. It's a very empowering feeling. This is, like I said, the most consistent I've ever been. I would really say is the past like 2 or 3 years, though my health and fitness journey took off probably about 6 years ago. I've really started developing a routine that I am proud of and consistency that I'm proud of within the last 3 years. And I think that's pretty damn awesome too, because there's been moments where I've compared myself to younger women and I've thought, oh, look at these younger women who have been training their entire life, or even women my age that have been training for how many years, you know? So we're our own biggest critics, especially when we start comparing ourselves. It is so internally fucked. Like, the only person I want to compare myself to is myself. Actually, this morning I'm reading this book, and today's chapter was about like motivation, or there were bits in this chapter that really stood out to me, and they were about motivation. And I'll just end on this note. This author wrote, motivation is not received, it is created. So you are not just given motivation, you have to create it within yourself. And he went on to say, if you can do something, just do it. These simple sayings are what gets me through the workouts. It's what gets me to continue showing up to my yoga mat. It's what gets me to put the effort in on the days that I'm feeling sad, depressed, stressed, anxious, overwhelmed. If I physically can do this, emotionally I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna fucking do it, okay? I might make more videos related to this in the future, maybe breaking down each topic a little bit more. I just felt called and inspired to make this because I am starting to post more different forms of movement across my social media. For the longest time, I was really only showing you guys my hikes, but lately I've been showing you a bit more of my workouts and more yoga. That's honestly what inspired me to open up about this area of my life with you. I don't know how you guys are gonna respond to it because I've never posted a video about this before, but I hope that you liked it. I hope that something resonated with you. I hope a part of this video inspires you to take your health into your hands and to commit and offer a healthy, positive lifestyle to yourself. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for supporting me and my channel. And if there's any videos that you really want to see, let me know. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.